And Democratic candidate for Congress right here in California, a man named Andy Caffrey, says if he wins, he will smoke a joint right on the steps of Capitol Hill, and adding that if he has to, he will even get arrested. So in other words, if he's elected, he'll take taxpayer money, get high, and not get anything done. Hey, welcome to Congress. He should fit in just fine. I think he'll fit in just fine. Oh. Well, Los Angeles has become the largest city in the nation to approve a ban on plastic bags at supermarket checkout lines. No more plastic bags. Now illegal in LA to have a plastic bag, unless it's filled with medical marijuana. Then you're okay. Then it's legal. Then you're okay. Yeah.
Hi, Jay. Before you head off on your next big adventure, I want to thank you for telling those jokes in the last election about me as a California Democratic congressional candidate who pledged to smoke a joint and even get arrested if I have to on the steps of the Capitol to support federal legalization of marijuana. Well, I'm running again in 2014, and that pledge is still valid, although my main issue is the climate crisis and environomic job creation. But I do think we made a difference. Look what's happening now, and I think now is the time to get federal legalization. So I hope now that NBC is freeing up some more of your time, you'll have some more time to be active. I was also a singing candidate in 2012, and so I'd like to send you off with a song by my friend Lee Golan, which is my State of the Union report. So please sing along. It's been 5 years since you had a raise in pay. Way things are going, you could get laid off any day. Sure is hard to live with all that pain. You need a power, a scapegoat that you can blame. That's Glenn Beck. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Your neighborhood library is gone up close. And the school your kids go to is becoming a joke. Self-serving liberals blame it on corporate tax breaks. But propaganda, you know you should hate. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Who's to blame for the things you're pissed off about? Who's to blame for inflation, unemployment, and drought? Who's to blame for the end of the good old days? Who's to blame for the fact that you can't get laid? You know who it is. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got big balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. So Jay, after January 2015, you have an open invitation to visit me in Congress. I'll keep the bong warm for you. Bon voyage.
Bright lights didn't stop them, guards didn't deter them. An 8-foot-high fence couldn't keep militant environmentalists from sneaking onto this Brentwood strawberry field Monday morning and effectively delaying today's frostband bacteria test. Critics call it genetically engineered madness and disrupted the first experiment on the Brentwood strawberries last April by pulling up most of the plants. This time the sabotage was more destructive.
One protester showed up at Friday's sunrise test.
Until you have a Bhopal or Chernobyl, you can't stop things like this.
Skeptics are wondering if altering the biology of the food is the right substitute.
But repeated resistance to the frostband testing could force the company to take the experiments out of the state or even out of the country. Australia is one place that they're looking at. But the environmental activists say they have people in Australia and they'll try the same kinds of tactics there.
Hi, I'm Andy Caffrey, and I approve this message.
The president is polling competitively with Mitt Romney in the red state of Arizona, and so some Arizona officials are looking to birthers to get the president off the ballot. And a new survey puts a majority of Americans on the side of legalizing marijuana. My next guest is in favor of it, and he plans to light up on the steps of the Capitol if he's elected. John Boehner, watch out, that's coming up.
It's a tricky thing politically to jump on that bandwagon, because I think that maybe people see it as taboo still.
It's why it's a ballot measure, Bill, because no politician, even if they thought it was a good idea. Oh my God. Yeah. As I was saying.
Nearly 19 months since actor Zach Galifianakis lit a joint on television during a discussion about California's ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, someone else has taken up the torch and is lighting up on the campaign trail.
It's a friend of mine, John Llewellyn. You see, I'm the only guy who's willing to get arrested on the steps of the Capitol doing this. Medical marijuana has improved my life. I don't think another person should spend an hour in jail for marijuana. That's why I'm fully for legalization.
Joining me now is Andy Caffrey, Democratic congressional candidate from California's newly configured 2nd District. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Martin.
Good evening from our perspective. You use marijuana for medicinal purposes, as I understand it. What are your medical reasons?
Well, I have 3 neurological conditions: post-traumatic stress disorder, attention deficit disorder, and obsessive-compulsive tendencies. And so I use it for sort of a tranquilizer effect. I use it for focusing, and I use it to get to sleep.
So those are strongly mental reasons for using this medication, is that correct?
That's right. I don't have a physical ailment that I'm using it for pain relief.
Okay. Now, 16 states and the District of Columbia already have legalized medicinal marijuana. Why not just stop there? What is your argument for the legalization of marijuana altogether?
Well, I live in Humboldt County, and we have this new district which includes Marin County, and where I live the median income's $35,000 a year. In Marin it's $85,000 a year, and our economy is, the bedrock is marijuana. $1 billion to $2.6 billion a year comes into our county. That's a quarter to over half of the income of the county. So this income has dropped substantially since medical marijuana has been passed. And so a lot of people locally are concerned about a state initiative that might make it legal in California and thereby spread the number of people who can grow it themselves. But if you legalize it nationally, then there's actually more of a market. There are people like Tom Hartman who said that if it was legal, he'd smoke marijuana.
So that sounds to me as though you're arguing this from an economic perspective as opposed to a medicinal one.
Well, it's not either or. As you heard in that clip, my primary reason is because I don't think another person should spend another hour in jail for marijuana-related crimes. In fact, I don't even want to call them crimes.
Okay. One recent study found young people who smoked marijuana at least 5 times at least 5 times, were twice as likely to have developed psychosis over the next 10 years than those who don't smoke pot. Does that have any effect on your argument?
Well, I've been living in a place that grows the finest marijuana in the world. It's called the Emerald Triangle, and it's comprised of 3 of the counties in our new district. We've been living with it since the mid-'70s. And a few years ago, I talked to my doctor, who had been the doctor for 29 years in the area, and asked him about effects on people, because if anybody knew, he would know. And he said the only negative effects that he had seen in his entire career in Garberville were 2 people who smoked about 20 joints a day and had esophageal bleeding. And he also had some concerns about young people between 15 and 18. Now, I've also heard some studies from England about that, what you were talking about, and I'm not here as an advocate for using marijuana. In fact, I hesitated a long time before allowing an image to be created of me smoking a joint, because I don't want my being a congressman to cause people, young people especially, to smoke marijuana. But I feel that it's our right to not be in jail, and it's our right to have an economy that produces marijuana. And it is really important to a lot of people medicinally. Their lives are ruined when President Obama comes in here and shuts down the dispensaries.
Okay, well, Andy Caffrey, a great advocate for marijuana, candidate for Congress from California. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, Martin.
Coming up, the birthers who never went away, and they're trying to keep the president off the Arizona ballot. That's next.
The Republicans are destroying our democracy. They are literally dismantling it.
I've seen Charles Hurwitz come in and take over the Pacific Lumber Company, a 100-year-old sustainable family company, and destroy the old-growth forest ecosystem. They've shut down the mills. There is no Pacific Lumber Company. There's no old-growth mills anymore because there's no more product. I'm here to fight for you, and especially for your children. Hi, I'm Andy Caffrey, and I approve this message.
Next, and Alex has been intently listening to this Justin Bieber story.
Yeah, I have, because I actually have a bunch of Team Bieber shirts over there offset.
You believe the Biebs. You believe.
I always believe the Biebs.
Yeah, it's a good way to go.
Bieb, country, I don't know even who's below that. Thanks, Thomas. The nominee is making it official with a Texas primary tonight from 11:44 to 2:70. We'll look at the new numbers game. And how Rudy, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, is gifting Mitt Romney with his very own Cory Booker moment. Plus, Jamie Rubin on America's Game of Drones, and a congressional candidate whose campaign is literally going to pot. Now starts in a mere 180 seconds. After the break, joint talks. A congressional candidate from California is running on a platform to legalize marijuana. Is the country ready for a year-long 420? We will ask him when he joins us live next on Now.
Oh, once upon a midnight.
I have a bumper sticker that tells you I'm certainly on the side of the fish. I'm against the drones in the national forest. And I am a medical marijuana patient. So I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, John Llewellyn. You see, I'm the only candidate who's willing to get arrested on the steps of the Capitol doing this.
That was Andy Caffrey, who's running for Congress in California, detailing his unique platform at a rally earlier this month. Caffrey wants marijuana legalized, and if he's elected, promises to light up on the Capitol steps to draw national attention to the issue. Joining us now is Andy Caffrey, who labels himself monstrously green in the Democratic Party. Andy, great to see you.
Thanks, Alex. Nice to be here.
So, Andy, I want to draw some attention to your overall platform, the monstrously green moniker that you've adopted. You're interested, obviously, in the legalization of marijuana, the climate crisis, ending corporate personhood, taxing the super rich, ending presidential crime by punishing it, and, of course, electoral reform. But let's start with the marijuana thing, because it's an interesting issue, and I think a lot of folks feel like the wind may be in the proverbial sails, no pun intended, given the fact that there are now some folks on the conservative side of the aisle who are proponents of legalizing it, including Grover Norquist, Gary Johnson, Glenn Beck, Pat Robertson. Do you think now is a time for, if not decreasing the war on drugs, changing some of our national positions on certain drugs?
Yes, I call it the ridiculous persecution because The time is long past. One of the lines that gets a lot of laughs in my campaign is it would be a big travesty if the hippies died off without legalizing pot first. Where I live, I've lived in Humboldt County, North Coast region for about 25 years, and we used to have a thriving timber industry, but that was throttled. And now we have a very narrow range of opportunities in the rural parts of Northern California, and marijuana is providing anywhere between 25 and maybe 60% of our total income. So our entire economy on the North Coast has made a transformation over the last 15 years, and now it's just time to stop throwing people in jail. No one should be in jail. Over 800,000 people a year are arrested for marijuana in this country. It's just not right.
I want to play a little bit of sound. The president weighed in on the subject of drug legalization when he was in Cartagena. Let's hear what he said.
I personally and my administration's position is that legalization is not the answer. Nevertheless, I'm a big believer in looking at the evidence, having a debate.
I want to open this up to our panel for a second. Steve, there are 17 states plus Washington, D.C., where medical marijuana is legal. The president there not, I don't know, keeping the door sort of open to a conversation around legalization. What's your prognosis on this taking a hold, in terms of a national policy?
I think it's really going to take some time. I mean, what you have with Andy there, and it's an interesting story, but what he's talking about in his district is something that's very unique in terms of the role that marijuana plays in the economy there. He's sort of the most expressive candidate in that race when it comes to his support for legalization, but he's not the only candidate running up there who supports it. It's becoming, in that neck of the woods, it's becoming something you have to do if you want to be a successful politician. There's another primary going on today in Texas where a long-serving Democratic incumbent, Silvestre Reyes, is being challenged by a guy who may actually beat him in today's primary. The signature issue in that race, the signature issue of his challenger, who lives right on the Mexico border where the drug wars are really flaring up, is marijuana legalization. So there are pockets of the country where I think this has really strong resonance right now. But I think overall, when you're talking about national politics, when you're talking about people like Obama who are thinking about all the states, all the swing states, I think it's going to be a long time before it catches up in states that aren't like that.
Andy, it's worth noting that I thought this was a very, very telling quote. Our drug czar, Gil Kurlikowski, said to the AP on May 13th of 2010, 2 years ago, in the grand scheme, it has not been successful, speaking about the war on drugs. 40 years later, the concern about drugs and drug problems is, if anything, magnified, intensified. Why isn't that taken, that sort of, that verbiage, I mean, that's pretty powerful coming from one of our national, one of the folks that's crafting our national drug policy. Why isn't that sort of broader line of argument adopted by the pro-pot legalization community?
Well, it's adopted by a lot of people. There are a lot of issues to argue on. For example, one of the things that I just learned about in Trinity County is that if you are a mother and you give birth, they measure THC, and if they find THC, there's a very good chance that they're going to take your kid away and put it in foster care, and then the counties get paid $15,000 for that. It's just that people don't know what it's like to live in a culture of marijuana. People have all these strange images, and we have these vested interests who just have perpetuated this horrible persecution for so long. It's just alien to most people. Most people also think of it as something to be defensive about, and that's hopefully one of the things that's going to change because of my campaign. There's no reason why people who are medical marijuana smokers should feel shy or defensive about taking their medicine. It improves the lives of thousands of people, and there's a huge area of research yet to be done on health effects. One of my opponents is a medical marijuana doctor, and he tells me extraordinary stories about removing seizures, 400 seizures a day in one patient down to 4. So there's a whole cultural education project that has to happen here.
And it is indeed part of a larger cultural battle that I think will play out in states where, as Steve said, you wouldn't think there would be a lot of debate about legalizing marijuana. Andy Caffrey, thank you for joining us. Good luck. We will be watching the campaign with bated breath.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, First Lady Michelle Obama speaks out about her new book, Beats, and whether she would ever run for president. We'll hear her latest comments next in What Now?
There are no jobs on a dead planet. If you're a 4-pack a day tobacco smoker, it matters whether you stop smoking 4 or 5 cigarettes a day or 4 packs a day. In 1990, there were reports issued by the EPA, by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the Woods Hole Research Center, saying we had to reduce our emissions 50 to 80% below 1990 levels by 2005. We missed it, and we don't get any more time. In fact, the science since then shows that we underestimated it.
Hi, I'm Andy Caffrey, and I approve this message.
You see, I'm the only guy who's willing to get arrested on the steps of the Capitol doing this.
I don't think another person should spend another hour in jail for marijuana-related crimes. There's no reason why people who are medical marijuana smokers should feel shy or defensive about taking their medicine. Their lives are ruined when President Obama comes in here and shuts down the dispensaries.
Hi, I'm Andy Caffrey, and I approve this message.
And CNBC is reporting that America lost 129,000 millionaires last year. Woo. Or as Mitt Romney calls them, an endangered species we have to protect. We have to protect these people. They are, well, and President Obama arrived in Los Angeles today. This is true. His plane landed at LAX from San Francisco at 4:20. 4:20. I can't imagine why he picked that time to arrive. Well, a new book out claims that Barack Obama smoked a lot of marijuana while he was in high school. You know, if I had to choose a candidate I thought was smoking a lot of dope, I would have to go with Romney. No, I mean, he's the one with a short-term memory. Remember, he's the one that said, I don't know exactly what I said, but I stand by what I said, whatever it was. Doesn't that sound like the guy that's high? Maybe I'm wrong. And a Democratic candidate for Congress right here in California, a man named Andy Caffrey, says if he wins the election, he will smoke a joint on the steps of Capitol Hill, and if he has to, he will even get arrested. Finally, a politician who makes a promise he can actually keep. There you go. Finally. Thank you. Well, there's a rumor going around that suggests President Obama may legalize marijuana as an October surprise to win the election. Well, yeah. And if he doesn't win, at least he'll have a way to mellow out later. So, whatever happens.
It's been 5 years since you had a raise in pay. The way things are going, you could get laid off any day. Sure is hard to live with all this pain. You need a powerless scapegoat that you can blame. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, it's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, they've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, they've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, let's send them back. You want to know? Your neighborhood library is going to close. And the school your kids go to's becoming a joke. Self-serving liberals blame it on corporate tax breaks. That's propaganda, you know who you should hate. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, it's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs, they've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Who's to blame for the things you're pissed off about? Who's to blame for inflation, unemployment, and drought? Who's to blame for the end of the good old days? Who's to blame for the fact that you can't get laid? Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got no class. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. It's all their fault. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. They've got some balls. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Teenage immigrant welfare mothers on drugs. Let's send them back. Thank you.